Let's talk about some creatures to help me study for my entomology lab exam. So, insects are what are known as hexapods. Hexa meaning six, pods meaning feet, so they have 6 feet and by extension 6 legs. So, all insects are hexapods, but not all hexapods are insects. And there's also some hexapods that are insects, but they don't look like traditional insects. Let's talk about some weird little guys. So these are springtails. They are found very commonly pretty much everywhere in soil, in leaf litter, in dirt, and just forest floor organic matter junk. They are what are known as detritivores, which means they eat decaying organic matter, so they are a very, very good cleanup crew, and these are often used in bioactive terrariums, so terrariums that have plant matter and other animals living in them because they are very good at cleaning up stuff. So these are what are known as primitive hexapods, but they are not insects. They're just insect relatives, but they still do have some of the insect characteristics, such as 6 legs, the antenna, all that. So they are wingless. They live mainly in the soil, and they are very, very tiny. They're also called springtails because they have this body part on them called a furcula, which allows them basically to just pop up. They can jump ridiculously high for their body size, and that's used as a defense mechanism to get away from predators and stuff, but that is why they're called springtails, because their abdomen acts as a spring to just launch them. These guys are called the Diplura, and like the springtails, they're not actually insects, they're just primitive hexapod insect relatives. They, much like the springtails, eat dead organic matter and live in soil and moss and under logs, under rocks, all of that, and they also act as a cleanup crew. Now, these guys don't have eyes, so they're essentially blind. They also, you can't really see it super well in this video, but if you look really closely, their antennae are actually beaded, so it looks like just a bunch of little balls strung together, and I think that's pretty neat. And unlike the springtails, they have these 2 long attachments at the end of the abdomen called cerci. Now getting into the actual insects, even though they don't really look that much like other insects, these are called bristletails. Now these guys you can't really see in this photo, but they do have very large compound eyes, and those eyes are actually touching, so that's an identifying factor for them. And they do have these long extensions on the end of the abdomen, but they're not cerci like in the Diplura. They're just called abdominal appendages, but they are also used to jump much like the springtails do. That is also where they get their name. The bristletails come from the bristle appendages on the end of their abdomen. These guys are mainly nocturnal, and once again, they live in leaf litter. They are detrivores, so they eat all the dead and decaying organic matter. Again, very good for cleanup crew. Finally, we have my favorite of the weird little guys, the silverfish, which are a real thing. They weren't just made up for Minecraft. These guys are also true insects. They're really nice and shiny, like you can see that's where they get the silver from. These guys, again, have no wings. They do have eyes, but they're a bit smaller and less well developed, and they do have the 3 abdominal appendages on the end of their abdomen, like the bristletails. However, in the case of silverfish, they're all the same length, whereas in bristletails, the middle one is significantly longer. And these guys are actually normally found indoors. They're found in buildings, so in cellars, in basements, in attics, and anywhere basically just cold and maybe vaguely damp. Cold, dark, and damp-ish. Now, I know most people don't like bugs indoors, but these guys can actually be very helpful because they do help with cleanup. They get into those kind of harder to reach spaces and eat all the dirt and dust and buildup of food and crumbs and stuff, and occasionally they also eat larger insects that are considered pests like flies, or even sometimes they'll go after small spiders. So unless you have a very serious infestation of these guys where they're actively getting into your food and other stuff, just consider leaving them alone because they're actually helpful and they come out at night most of the time, so you will probably never see these guys. But they are my favorite out of these because I think they look very cool, and just appreciate the little guys that are helping clean your home.